Somewhere in your house, there is a photo of you before you could talk. Maybe you are covered in cake. Maybe you are asleep in someone's arms. You have seen this photo 100 times, and yet you remember none of it. Not the cake, not the arms, not the room. You were there. Your brain was working. Your eyes were open. So where did it go? The easy answer is that babies are too young to remember anything, but that is not true. The real answer is far stranger. Your brain at 6 months old was already learning faster than it ever will again. It was mapping faces. It was memorizing the sound of your mother's voice before you were even born. It was building the foundations of language, of movement, of fear, of love. All of that stuck. None of it comes back as a memory you can describe. Something else was happening in there. Something scientists spent over a century trying to explain. Sigmund Freud was the first to give it a name. He called it infantile amnesia. He noticed that adults could not recall anything from roughly their first 3 to 4 years of life, no matter how significant the event. A birthday, a move to a new house, the birth of a sibling, gone. Freud thought this forgetting was psychological. He believed the mind was repressing early memories, burying them because they were too emotionally loaded to carry forward. It was a compelling idea. It was also, as later research would show, almost completely wrong. The real explanation does not live in repression. It lives in construction. Your brain was not hiding your early memories. It had not finished building the machinery required to store them in the first place. Think about what a memory actually requires. You need to notice something happening. You need to tag it with a sense of time and place. You need to file it away in a system that can later retrieve it on command, complete with the feeling of, "This happened to me." That last part is called autobiographical memory, and it depends on a brain structure called the hippocampus. Here is the strange part. Your hippocampus is not fully wired at birth. It is one of the last major memory systems to mature, and it keeps developing well into early childhood. Psychologist Carolyn Rovee-Collier spent decades studying infant memory using a method that looks almost too simple to work. She would tie a ribbon from a baby's ankle to a mobile hanging above the crib. The baby would kick. The mobile would spin. Babies as young as 2 or 3 months old learned the connection almost immediately, kicking harder and faster once they realized their legs controlled the toy above them. When she brought the babies back weeks later and showed them the same mobile, they remembered. They started kicking again, before she even touched the ribbon. So infants can remember, clearly. Then why does none of it survive into adulthood? Rovee-Collier's work revealed something crucial. Infant memories are real, but they are fragile, context-bound, and easily overwritten. A baby's memory system is less like a filing cabinet and more like wet sand. Something can be written into it, but it does not last unless the surface hardens around it, and in infancy, that surface is still forming. This is where a more recent piece of the puzzle comes in. In 2021, a team led by neuroscientist Turk-Browne at Yale used functional MRI to scan the brains of infants as young as 4 months old while they looked at images. The infants had to lie still inside a scanner, which is its own small miracle. What Turk-Browne's team found was remarkable. The hippocampus of these infants was already active during learning. It was already encoding information. The forgetting was not happening because nothing was being recorded. Something else was interfering with playback. Picture a library where books are being added to the shelves every single day, but the cataloging system, the index that tells you where to find any specific book, has not been built yet. The books are there, you just cannot retrieve them by title. That is closer to what is happening inside an infant's brain, encoding without a stable index for retrieval. There is another twist, and it might be the strangest part of the whole story. Some researchers now believe that infant amnesia is not just a limitation. It might be, in a strange way, a feature. Psychologist Patricia Bauer, who has spent much of her career studying how autobiographical memory develops in early childhood, has shown that children's ability to hold on to long-term personal memories improves gradually across the preschool years. It is not a switch that flips on. It is a system that slowly comes online, piece by piece, as language develops, as the sense of self develops, as the hippocampus physically matures. Bauer's research suggests that a stable sense of me, existing continuously through time, has to exist before memories can be organized around it. Without that scaffold, even a vivid experience has nowhere to attach. There may be an evolutionary logic buried in this. An infant brain is under enormous pressure to learn general patterns quickly. how gravity works, how faces convey emotion, how language sounds are structured. Some researchers argue that an early memory system optimized for rapid, broad learning would actually be worse at holding on to specific, dated personal events, because holding on to specifics can slow down the extraction of general rules. In other words, your brain may have been built to prioritize learning how the world works over remembering what happened to you in it. Only once those foundational rules were in place did the machinery for personal, autobiographical memory switch on in earnest. So the moment you turned 3 or 4, roughly, is not when your memory suddenly started working. It is closer to the moment your brain finished building the index card system that lets memories be filed under me and pulled up again later on command. This explains something else, something you have probably noticed without ever putting it into words. Ask anyone about their absolute earliest memory, and you will notice it is almost never a full cinematic scene. It is a fragment, a smell, the color of a wall, the feeling of being picked up, fuzzy at the edges, missing most of its context. That is not memory decaying with age. That is memory captured by a system that was still under construction the moment it happened. And here is where it circles back to you. Right now, today, you still create memories the same way, with the same core machinery, just fully built now, instead of half finished. Every time you fail to remember what you had for lunch 3 Tuesdays ago, you are watching the exact same mechanism at work, just on a much smaller and much faster scale. Weak encoding, poor cataloging, no stable enough context to make retrieval automatic. Your brain still forgets constantly. It is simply better now at deciding what deserves to be kept. There is something oddly comforting in that. You are not missing a secret vault of forgotten childhood memories, locked away and waiting to be recovered through hypnosis or therapy, as Freud once imagined. The vault was never fully built in the first place. What you lost was never stolen from you. It was never finished being written down. Which means, the you that exists right now, the one reading this, remembering this in a week or a month, is not separate from that pre-verbal infant kicking at a mobile above a crib. It is the same continuous project, just one that only started keeping a permanent record partway through. The baby in that photo, the one covered in cake, was learning your mother's face, your home, the shape of love itself, all without knowing any of it would vanish from view. You were there for everything. You just were not building yourself a copy to keep. So the next time you look at that photo and feel a strange gap where a memory should be, remember this. Nothing was hidden from you. Nothing was taken. Your mind simply had not yet learned how to remember itself.